Did you have any sensitivity to the full moon energy a couple of hours ago? Did you feel it? I was thinking on the way over, I seem to think a lot when I drive over here for Sunday mornings. But how can we relate to the full moon of Scorpio? If you know your astrological chart, one of the ways is to pull out that chart each month, depending on, what sign we're going through. This month being Scorpio. And first take a look to see where is the sign of Scorpio in your chart, because that's the part of your life where the energies are going to be particularly focused. So, for example, let's say that you have Scorpio on the fourth house. Fourth house is homes, is basic, these real basic astrology. Okay, so that means that there should be a lot of focus in your home life during these days of Scorpio. Now, let's say you have Scorpio in the seventh house. And in addition to that, you have a planet in Scorpio in that house. Then in addition to that, you have a transiting planet moving through that house, contacting the planet that's already in there. And now we have the full moon of Scorpio flooding your relationships like you've never had before. Now, let's say that the planet Saturn is in that seventh house, in the sign of Scorpio. This is karma. So, are you going to react negatively, or are you going to react responsibly and positively? The more knowledge, more information that we have about how these full moon energies can affect us personally, individually, and globally, I believe, and this is not just a belief, it's a knowingness, then our sensitivity begins to increase. That sensitivity, when it's conjoined with knowledge, then activates the light of the soul and helps our unfolding human soul to progress. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, I think so too. So, welcome this morning. For those of you who are joining us on YouTube, either this morning or later, and this is your first time of watching our YouTube video, first of all, we'd like to welcome you. Secondly, to invite you to go to our website. Our website is www.wmea-world.org. You can go to our website and see everything about which we stand for and where our faith is and all of our activities. We have a new issue of Meditation Monthly International coming up in about a week, maybe a week and a half. If you go to that section, you can see all of our various Meditation Monthly International newsletters, which focuses on Agni Yoga. It's a beautiful publication. We have the monthly Zodiac newsletter, which you'll get every month, and all of this is free. We work hard to present it, to give it to you, but there's no charge to it, and we're able to do that because of our generous donators. Is that the right word, donators? No, donors. Okay. All right, due to our generous donors. So, this morning, Mountain Standard Time, the full moon, exact time, full moon was at 8:17. So hopefully you were able to take a few minutes, maybe a half an hour, and really focused in a state of meditation, putting your consciousness and letting it being flooded by this energy of Scorpio. But we are still in that energy, and we will be for about another, literally for about another 34 hours. But we will have another 5 days in which we can really experience and then distribute this energy. So let me tell you just a little bit, if you're new to the full moon and wondering what it is all about. Why do we celebrate the full moon? Well, in fact, we don't celebrate the full moon. We celebrate the sun and how the sun is insulating the moon in such a way that all of these energies coming from the sun going through the constellation of that particular month, and this month is Scorpio, is unimpeded. So without any hindrances, without any obstruction, this sun and the energies of Scorpio and its planetary configurations are now bombarding all of us. So how can we not be sensitive? How can we not be sensitive? But what sensitivity asks from us is creativity. And creativity comes as a result of moving our consciousness up into the light of the higher mind. Because that's where, if you can understand or think about this, that our consciousness has various levels, as well as the consciousness of humanity. We want to move our consciousness out of our day-to-day life, lift it up into the light of the higher mind, which is a sphere that is pure, really pure energy. And this is where we resource creativity, new ideas, new concepts, personal revelations. So, as this energy of Scorpio and its planetary configurations move down through the strata of space, eventually it ignites and hits our higher mind. So today, as we listen to how the full moon energy works, and when I'm done talking here, we're going to have a wonderful meditation. As a group, we will take not only the level of our consciousness, which hopefully we will have built and pulled up into the higher mind, but now the whole group, the chalice of the group, will become a receptacle of this energy. So if one person, imagine this, if one person is being influenced creatively, now we have a whole group of people receiving this energy into the chalice, which then becomes distributed to each of us as well. I was paying attention a little earlier, some co-workers have a GoToWebinar meeting from Finland. And a couple of things happened. They're having a major storm in Finland, and the first 45 minutes of their presentation couldn't be broadcast because of the wind and the interference. And I was thinking of our guys back there that run our webinar and all the challenges they get during weather times. But then the weather dissipated, and right at the time of their full moon, they had about 20 minutes of interrupted webinar and technology and everything, so everybody could meditate together. So then I was thinking about us and other groups around the world today. It's like, because of the different time zones, this meditation is being said all over the world for 24 hours. So if we can imagine every group, true group, having a chalice, and all that energy is flooding into the group chalice, and the individuals then of each group collectively, all the groups together, now creatively using that energy and distributing it in their own field of service. Is that not powerful? So amazing. constellations are far more than groups of stars. So here's a little esoteric knowledge. We are told that these groups of stars are the bodies of great lives. They're bodies of great lives through which these great lives function. So these great lives are functioning through the constellations as a whole. We learned in the teachings that the constellations are also great energy sources. At the time of the full moon, the sun totally radiates its light on the moon. When the full light of the sun is on the moon, which not only Helena Blavatsky told us over 100 years ago now, but now also science education is telling us that the moon is a decaying, lifeless body. So, as I was saying earlier, at the time of the full moon, with the way the sun is engulfing the moon, it not only it insulates a whole solar system by its light, but it also insulates the moon, the energy of the moon. The energy coming from the constellation now is going to find a channel. Finds a channel to the earth with no hindrances from that dead, dying, decaying, lifeless body of the moon. So this is why we're really celebrating the solar festival and not the lunar. It's just an old custom, that we say the full moon energy we're celebrating. That's the way it was back in the early 1900s up through about the 60s. And now we're esotericists are trying to move that phrase over to the sun festival or the solar festival. So, at the solar festival of each month, a great energy comes to our planet. And we have an opportunity to either react to it negatively or use it constructively. Now, like I was saying earlier, if you want to bring that energy down more and more and more into a real focus, pull out your chart, your horoscope, and see where Scorpio this month is, particularly if you have other planets in that house, because this energy, as it's channeled down into the planet, will also activate almost magically personal karma, activate energy in your atomic structure, in your cellular levels, and you're going to feel that energy. You're going to be more sensitive to it. And as we become more sensitive to it, we have more choices, when the bell rings, so to speak. And these choices will either give us a decision that we're going to react negatively and increase our karma, increase our anger and our jealousy and our malice and revenge and so on and so forth, or we're going to overcome all these difficulties that every year about this time of the year we experience. If we are an earthbound person, our obstacles are going to increase during each solar festival. An earthbound person means we're money bound, we're sex bound, we're possession bound, we're hatred bound, we're fear bound. This incoming energy will amplify our desire for more possessions, or more matter, as it's called, if that's the way we are. Well, we're not, ideally we're not that kind of people. But we can see these behaviors. And then we're affected by these behaviors of other people. So the effect gives us an opportunity to turn that energy around, first of all, to mirror back to them beauty and goodness and freedom and joy and virtue and value, and not negatively react. So there is a great opportunity right there. If we are on the path of discipleship, this energy will increase our urge to strive, to help to make our path a path of victory. And you will be sorely tested. How many? Raise your hands. How many of you were sorely tested the last couple of weeks? Yeah. Very few hands did not go up. I could raise both. So, if we are on the path of discipleship, our energy will increase our urge to strive to make our path a path of victory. This is why the keynote energy of Scorpio is, from the warrior I am, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. That's the keynote for Scorpio. In earlier times, victory meant to attack our enemy and kill him. That was Scorpio. That's how we think about Scorpio. Attack and kill. But in the new age, the new era, this is the era we're in now, victory means to master our own nature. Mastering our nature is the victory of Scorpio. Okay, so there's your meaning of Scorpio. When we can master our hatred and our separatism and our lies and our fears and our anxieties and vanities, in other words, our false personality, then we are going to be a victorious disciple. Now here's a legend of Hercules. There was a land in ancient Greece that belonged to the gods. There was a woman in this land who asked the gods for the power to strike a rock and to bring water from the rock. And this wish was given to her. Now, when she struck the rock, 3 streams of water poured out, and these 3 streams formed a river. As soon as the river was formed, a 9-headed hydra came and dwelt in the river of the swamp. Nobody was able to drink the water that was flowing from the rock because the hydra would eat them every time they came near. A great one summoned Hercules and said, "You must conquer this monster. I will give you some advice that may help you." And this was the advice. This great one said, "We rise by kneeling." We rise by kneeling. After receiving this advice from the great one, Hercules went searching for the hydra. He carried a big club, and he took his club and he went to the river and tried to find the monster. At last he found the monster living in a dark cave. He threw down his club, went into the darkness, brought the monster out, and tried to cut off all 9 heads. Right? But when he got 1 head, 2 heads grew back in its place. Don't we see that? Is it, not the head, but it's like we solve one problem, and it's just like, so we move that solved problem over here, and here comes another one. We take care of that one and move it. Oh, this is great. I'm finally relieved from this situation. And here comes another one. Yeah, isn't that fun? Hercules remembered the advice of his teacher. He knelt down and he raised the monster up with his hands. And he raised the monster in his hands. The hydra's strength slowly decreased. until it entirely faded away. Then Hercules cut off all the heads and buried them under a rock. No more energy. The energy is being drained out. All the poison is being drained out of this Hydra. So Hercules returned to his master and told him that he had completed the difficult labor. And so the Great One said to Hercules, "You are now a disciple." One of the great signs of a disciple is that he does not live for himself. He lives for others. This is a very important point in discipleship. A true definition of a disciple is a person who submits his will to a higher will. This is truly the definition of how we live our life for others. What I have seen throughout my life is people who think that they are service-oriented, in fact, are serving for gain. They're giving something to another person so they can receive more back. Okay, so perhaps we could say that this is the first step toward living for others. But in fact, there's still selfish motivation. So the definition, the true definition of service, which is equal to the definition of a disciple, is that we submit our will to a higher will. That takes true humility, a sense of purpose, and being sensitive to energy that is greater than your own. For example, our personality will must submit itself to the soul will. This would be the will of the solar angel. And then to the will of hierarchy, and then to the will of the great ones, and to the will of God. When we do this, this is what's so amazing to me. When we do this, we disappear. And the one who is worshipped or recognizes increases within us. This is how you can recognize a disciple. They don't bring attention to themselves. They don't talk about how important they are and how special they are and how good they are and how this and this and that they are. Because they are slowly disappearing into the light of the one that they are worshiping. So discipleship means getting rid of our small self and making room for spiritual values. The idea is echoed in the words of St. Paul. He said, "I die daily so that Christ may live in me." I'm sure you all recognize this. Eventually that I disappears and only Christ is there through all of your thoughts and feelings and emotions and creative expressions. Then you are no longer a person. You are a disciple of hierarchy. The most important goal for a disciple who is under the influence of Scorpio, and as you might have picked up on the fact when I was talking about your chart, everybody has Scorpio somewhere in their chart. So that means all of us are Scorpios, somewhere, somehow. We want to kill the Hydra and bury those 9 heads under a rock. This means that our personality must become totally controlled by the inner light. Isn't that beautiful? It really is. Our personality, which means our personality is made up of the nature of the physical body, the nature of the emotional body, the nature of the lower mental body. This personality must be transformed and become very beautiful and radioactive. It's not something that we can pretend to be. It's not something that we can go to acting class, or drama theater or whatever, and pretend that we're somebody else. There's no pretending. It's for real. And for real means that this is a process of becoming the real self, the capital S self. Transformation. Now, Scorpio is considered a double sign. A double sign. Scorpio is both a scorpion and an eagle, because a person who conquers the Hydra changes into the eagle. Okay. Those who conquer the Hydra change into an eagle. This means we fly into the super mundane and we are no longer limited to the earth. A great transformation happens. And this transformation occurs because we're slowly trying to conquer and master that 9-headed Hydra. A disciple under the influence of Scorpio is one who cuts the head off of comfort-seeking inclinations. So interesting. I know this is very mundane, but sometimes I like to watch the Food Channel. And the other day, it was all about comfort food. And I was really getting into it. And then I started putting together this morning's talk, cut the head off of comfort-seeking inclinations. I'm going to move away from the Food Channel network for a while. At least during the days of Scorpio. A huge commitment here. A person who seeks comfort ignores somebody crying outside. He says, I do not want to go and see what is happening. Let me sleep. But if he is a disciple, he says, there is a need, and I must meet that need. Whenever you feel that you do not want to be bothered meeting any need, then the Hydra is going to grow larger and larger in our personality. We have choices every day of whether to cut this head or to let it grow larger. Sometimes we are willing to assist someone who asks for help. Other times, with our feelings or thoughts or even our reasoning, it's our mind, it's our intellect that says, nah, he doesn't really need help. So we ignore the need. If we do not sacrifice our comfort, we are running away from the path of discipleship. The way I look at the path of discipleship is that this is a path of evolution. It is a path of creativity. It is the path where the mysteries of life are discovered and lived. And it is the lightning path that takes us into realms of consciousness, of experiences that only the great ones know about. So that's why we want to be on this path of discipleship. One of the greatest signs of a disciple is that he sacrifices his comfort for the upliftment of other people. Now we're told that money is a test under the influence of Scorpio. Shall we cut off our money and throw it away? No. The parable does not mean this. Remember that Hercules took the 9 heads and buried them under a rock, which means that he used all of his assets, all of his qualities, all of his personal energies for a noble purpose. Where it used to be, well, let me take a little sidebar here. It was back in the early 80s, and I became ordained as a minister. And then I went down to the tax office because someone said, you have to take a vow of poverty if you're a minister. Well, I was so naive and but obedient. So I went down to the tax office and I said, okay, do I have to take a vow of poverty now that I've been ordained into the ministry? And they said, you can. However, the church must be responsible for your retirement years. So if you take a vow of poverty, you don't pay taxes, you don't pay Social Security. But the church does. The church does everything. And I'm thinking, no, we're not going to ask our group to pay for my retirement years. How dangerous is that? So I decided that that's the way it was in maybe the 1800s, and they just haven't brought the law up to date. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we don't, want all of our ministers to become a burden, to the church. We're about giving, about service, not about taking. So I didn't get to take that vow of poverty, and I'm so glad. We don't want to walk around saying, I'm poor. Yeah. But it is very difficult for people to detach from money. Once there was a man of 70 or 80 years of age who suffered from a severe heart condition and had many heart attacks. He said, I am now in a thriving business and I'm going to make $500,000. The spiritual teacher said, why are you working for $500,000 when you already have $2 million? Now keep in mind this guy was like 70 or 80 years old. The teacher said, use the money you have, give it to the Cancer Society for research work, or give it to educational works. Give it to philanthropic activities. At your age, you should be thinking of how to come closer to God and not how to make more money. Once we detach from that money and start using it for a greater purpose, we cut that head that was attached to us. Instead of being the slave of that hydra head, we become a master because we use our money for the betterment of life. Discipleship is a life of discipline. Now, some people think that when they come to our lectures and listen to our beautiful words that they already are liberated and saved. It's just not that easy. It's inspiring, but then we have to take responsibility. A disciple becomes a disciple through a life of discipline. Discipline means to conquer matter with our spiritual self. We must learn at the Scorpio full moon to conquer our nature, to strive, and eventually to be victorious. So, until the sun moves into Sag, can we take one of the hydras and conquer it? And then next year we can take another head of the hydra and conquer it. Or if we really want to move into this path of initiation, we can incorporate every energy from Scorpio to Sag to Capricorn and so forth every single month, because those hydra heads are there every single month until we conquer them. If we can do this, we will see that energy is increasing in us. By conquering one head, we become stronger and better able to cut off other heads. The energy of victory grows in us as we conquer one head after another. So the story of Hercules symbolizes a great and beautiful teaching. The Christ within us, the divine fire, which must eventually conquer the world. Yeah.